And this time, as like last time, I've been procrastinating for 2 days about what to create as a subject. So I surprised myself with what comes next. There's a million topics and there's a million stories within this vessel. Um, I keep coming back to this idea of disconnection. I feel it's an extremely important topic. I think why I keep erring and not going into it is because there's these cliches that can come up like masculine and feminine. I'm very wary of these. My idea for getting on here is to reach the sort of everyman. I don't want to just talk to a bunch of coaches and a bunch of spiritual people who know what all these words mean. I really want to make it simple. For me, simple is a broader approach and more likely to touch the people who really need it instead of the people who are already heavily into your personal development and as such. So what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about what disconnected can be from my perspective, and I will go more with a male angle this time. It's something that I've lived with in the past myself through bad choices. It can show its face in a real lack or misunderstanding of emotion. So what tends to surface from that is this numbing, and numbing is sport, sex, drugs, alcohol, work, um, high achieving, which was a personal favourite of mine. You know, to jump into my story quick, I spent most of my life trying to prove to myself that I wasn't scared by doing everything from being a criminal to jumping out of aeroplanes to taking all sorts of drugs to moving to any and every country I could possibly think of at a whim, to taking on the craziest jobs without any experience that I could and achieving in those, to moving to Africa and running around the bush, tracking elephant, lion, buffalo, capturing, relocating these species, all in the name of achieving, of proving that I was worthy. And, when I look back now, prior to sort of 5 or 6 years ago, I have to be very honest with the fact that a lot of it was just chasing me, chasing who I was. So it didn't matter whether I was chasing an animal or a woman or a job or money or a high. Um, it was all in the search for Aaron, search for understanding me. Now I'm very lucky. I take those risks and I've ended up on a path that's led me through a beautiful personal development track, brought me to the right people, and I've had the balls to step into it. But I'm very realistic about the fact that we have a lot of unsupported men out there who are having a lot of fingers pointed at them. And that's a discussion for another time. What my aim is here is to try and maybe touch someone's thoughts and have them realize that they're not the victim. And the only way out or through this is to redefine who they are, and that is by balance. And that is by understanding the heart as much as men don't like it, which is, for all intensive purposes, and a simple explanation, our emotions, um, our mind, which is the mental process, our thoughts, understanding and becoming aware of where they are, where they come from, and what they mean to us. Then there's the body and the physical, how we use our bodies and how we move that energy that gets stored and locked in the masculine very, very easily, creates anger, creates resentment, it creates rage. And then is that favorite one we love to talk about now, and that is soul or spirit. It's a tricky one for men, like emotions. Men don't like to hear the word spiritual. My brother just yesterday told me how all that spiritual, can't swear because apparently Facebook doesn't like it, just completely switches him off. He's still young, so I can understand that completely. But it is becoming a little bit of a problem as men get older, in that um, they deny the fact that there's an emotional part of them and they deny the fact that there's a spiritual part of them. Now, we all have emotions, whether we like it or not, and men like to suppress. So, what I do by talking on here and what I do by sharing little sort of pieces of me is show men that being vulnerable, being open, and being honest and sincere like this isn't a sign of weakness. I've done every masculine thing you can think of, or everything that would be defined as masculine. I've taken the risks. I've lived on the edge of fear. I hunted Africa. I hunted wild game. I stalked it, tracked it without a gun afterwards in conservation using just a camera. I've jumped out of planes. I've lived on that edge. And what I've found is that the biggest strength that I've had and the biggest amount of courage is pushing this live button, which might sound really weird, but that is just the truth. And it's something that even now, just saying that I struggle with slightly, but it's something that I'm really keen to share and help other men understand that once you come into that space where you acknowledge and are prepared to accept those emotions that you've been suppressing because that's what you were taught, and once you understand that that spirit or that soul, that energy that binds us exists, there are some really simple practices and there are some really simple tools that you can use to not only improve your life, but possibly pass through onto your kids so that that place that you may have lived for a very long time, which I know is very lonely, we can pretend that behind a beer and watching footy or down at the pub that it isn't, but it's a lonely place. And I know that there isn't a parent alive who doesn't want to see the best for their partners, ex or current, and their kids when they remove the anger and they remove the suppressed emotions that have been hidden there for so long. So that's my 6.5 minutes for today. Not as inspiring as I'd planned, but I love winging it. I love just putting myself out there. Like I said, it takes courage to push that live button. Um, I spent some time in an African prison, and when being held accountable for going live on Facebook, my response was, I'd rather go back to African prison. And I wasn't lying. At the time, that was a hell of a lot more of an acceptable place for me to be than sitting in front of you doing this. So I hope that I can continue to do this. I can continue to share my story. I can continue to possibly open up a side of me that might help others, because that is what I'm here for. That's why I'm doing this. So if you know anyone who needs someone to talk to, um, and have a look at that side of them, just send me a message here anytime. Always happy to serve.